Hello guys, in this video I have Charlie Baker, former governor of Massachusetts versus President Joe Biden. Now Baker would be a decent candidate to run. I mean, he isn't as opposed to Trump as Phil Scott was that I did last video. Like Phil Scott literally admitted to voting for Joe Biden. Charlie Baker, the 2020 election, just left his ballot blank, he said. So I don't think he would be that bad for conservative Republicans to get behind. I think they would still think about voting for him, and he wouldn't have that much of a decrease in rural turnout that Phil Scott did my last prediction. So let's get right into this. We'll start off with the South, I guess, or in the more western states. But Colorado would still be likely Democratic, same with New Mexico. I could see it going down to lean because of how much of a moderate Charlie Baker is. Then again, I still think you can unite the more conservative parts of the Republican Party and still get them to turn out for him. In Texas, maybe he could win it by safe Republican, but I'm just going to put it as likely. I think he wins this state by about 9, Florida by about a 10-point margin against Joe Biden. I think he would still get a lot of conservatives to vote for him and maybe a lot of moderate voters in the state of Florida. But it would be a reduced margin, wouldn't be as big as DeSantis' victory there. Which states should we go to next? Let's do Iowa and Ohio. I just think he would still win Iowa by a likely margin. Again, most of the voters here in Iowa disapprove of Biden by a very large margin, while Ohio see it just as a lean Republican margin. Again, you could lose some populist voters in the rural areas, which is why it's a reduced margin. In North Carolina and Georgia, though, these are the right type of Republicans to still win over these two states, and even make Virginia extremely competitive, but Biden would still win it. Let's head over to the New England area. Charlie Baker's home state, he has a 52% approval rating going out. He used to be very much more popular than that, but the conservatives in the state really turned on him, so he would only make it a lean Democratic margin. Biden still carries the state because, again, politics are very polarized nowadays. Vermont, I see going down to a likely Democratic margin. I think Charlie Baker could do decent in this state. While Rhode Island and Connecticut still consider them as lean Democratic, but again, they would probably be swing states in a scenario like this. New Hampshire, though, I could see Baker actually winning by a likely Republican margin. I think he would deal well with most of the voter bases here. He might even pick Chris Sununu as his running mate. I could see him doing that to lock up New Hampshire further. But I think it would be a very good fit for a state like New Hampshire. And it would be a decent fit for a state like Maine. I think he could perform pretty well here and win it by a lean margin, while Maine's first goes to likely because of how much of a centrist Charlie Baker is. However, the state of New Hampshire, again, it's still very Democratic, even though it would be a lot of moderates voting for Baker. It really would make the states like a lean margin or swing state. It'd just be likely Democratic. Okay. So in the Rust Belt, again, the same issue that Phil Scott faced last video is a lot of populist, more conservative voters really wouldn't like Charlie Baker at the top of the ticket and would just protest by not voting for him. So again, you would probably lose Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I could see Wisconsin being a tilt state just out of opposition for Joe Biden, and maybe Baker wins over a lot of moderate voters here, but I still think it narrowly votes for Joe Biden because of that drop-off in populist conservative voters. However, Baker would be able to get a victory in Nebraska second, and let's head to Arizona, which I do think he'd be able to win and unite those more moderate Republicans who are just never Trump Republicans to get them to vote for him. While Nevada, again, I think he'd be able to get a very narrow victory here. Almost goes to a tie. If Biden wins Nevada, then it goes to the House of Representatives. And it'll get messy there. But I still think Baker would win Nevada and Arizona by very narrow margins. Even though there'll be a drop-off in the more rural areas, I still think he could carry those two states. And, yeah, this is my election prediction. A weird map again, but it's a liberal Republican versus Joe Biden. So, yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one.